Hello and welcome to the Dojo Search Marketing News Podcast by Exposure Ninja. My name is Dale Davies. I'm the head of marketing at Exposure Ninja, and I'm joined by Charlie Marchant, our CEO. How you doing, Charlie?
Doing very well, thank you. How are you?
Pretty good. I'm feeling ready for the weekend, I must admit. My brain is full of information, and I think I need a weekend to kind of process
Decompress.
it in. Yeah, absolutely. This week we're going to be talking about, as anyone watching us via live and on video will see, that there is a pretty big news update about Google potentially losing up to 2 billion daily searches from Apple. How much have you read up on this one, Charlie?
I've read up quite a lot on this, actually. My initial feeling about this was, oh my God, this all makes so much sense. And then I became more and more cynical the further I read.
Yeah, I can totally understand that. It's quite a big one, and we'll get into the details in just a second. But what we're really going to cover today is what was really said and why there is that potential for the 2 billion to be lost. Yeah, maybe it's not going to be quite that big, but yeah, you've got to get people clicking on the video and listening to the podcast. So that's the title we've gone with. We're also going to talk about how Google responded as well, what that drop in searches might actually mean, and whether is it completely accurate what's being reported in the news, and what the impact is going to be to us as marketers, and whether that's in-house or elsewhere. So I'm going to share my screen. For those of you who are listening on audio, you can head over to exposureninja.com/podcast. You'll be able to watch along, and I'll try my very best to describe what I'm showing on the screen as well. So here we go. So the initial news story was that there is this trial happening with the DOJ, the Department of Justice in the US, and they're looking into Google and the bigger holding company of Alphabet, who own Google and YouTube and all these other things, and saying, okay, how do we break you up because you're too profitable? You're doing too well. And during this, they've pulled in other people from the tech world and want to ask their opinion about the monopoly that Google potentially has. And they pulled in a bunch of people from Apple, from Facebook, and everywhere. And just this week, somebody from Apple, a senior vice president of services, Eddie Q, has come in and said, "Oh, well, we might not keep Google any longer." we might not have that as a default search engine much longer. We might actually switch to something else. So I don't know where the quote is exactly, but what they're generally saying is that we're seeing searches via Safari actually drop for the first time in like 20 years. They're saying that people are not using the default search, they're going to other options instead. And in Apple's opinion, it might be best for them to put some other offering out there instead. So last year or into this year, they launched Apple Intelligence, which was you can ask Siri a bunch of questions and it will answer you, but you'll also have the opportunity to ask ChatGPT if you prefer. And what it sounds like they're suggesting is that instead of having Google as the default, you might be able to just ask ChatGPT or Perplexity or any other engine. And if they do that, all the searches that people are used to doing on Safari, directly to Google, and they go completely to other platforms instead, which is, there are quite a lot of them. Like, I was trying to look into the data last night, Charlie, and it's something like, I can't remember the exact number. So we've got 1.3, so at least 1.3 billion active iPhone users at the moment, and there's probably a billion of them are using Safari as their default browser, unless they downloaded the Chrome app. So rough estimates are that there are about 800 million people using Safari on desktop and about 200 million using it on the mobile. That's quite a lot of daily people doing searches. And if they do switch away from Google, which is what's been claimed here, that spells trouble for people who are used to just getting that organic traffic from Google every day.
Yeah, it absolutely does. My initial reaction to this whole news story was it's going to happen. It's just a timing question for when we switch over to AI search. Google ran a survey at the end of last year which showed like 93% of Gen Z are using AI search instead of like a default Google browser, default search engine. So to me, the shift is definitely happening, and our younger generations are always the one that starts to shift with new technology first, as is the way of the world. But my second thought on this, as I thought about it more and more, I became a lot more skeptical, because to be the default search engine on Apple's Safari browser, Google has a $20 billion annual deal with them. And if we think about who's paying who, Apple are not actually going to want to lose out on a 20 billion annual deal from Google. That's a huge portion of their revenue and earnings that they have coming in there. And Google's also not going to want to lose its search dominance. It's not going to want to lose that default option, because the majority of people will be using the default option on a search browser, on their phones, on their desktop, on their work computers, everywhere. So actually losing that out on iPhones is massive to Google as well. But perhaps my cynicism comes in even more in the context in which this was said. So this was, as you mentioned, Dale, part of the antitrust case that's ongoing. So that was Eddie Q from Apple testifying to say, well, Google's search share, the searches are dropping, so Google might not be the person that we want to go with. Now, why would Apple say that? What does Apple have to gain? And Apple have a history of making statements in which they're doing so for their own long-term financial gain. It makes sense. They're in business. They're a for-profit company. That is what they're going to do. And at the moment, that antitrust case, there's a potential that Apple would be losing that deal with Google anyway, if the outcomes of that are that they decide Google is too dominant and they're going to restrict the number of deals that Google has going on in the marketplace, so that it isn't having a monopoly on all of the searches across pretty much everything and everywhere. So the first way of looking at it is that Apple don't want to lose out on that. So they might be testifying in order to say, hey, you know what, Google's not actually that dominant anyway. Maybe this isn't such a big deal. The other reason they might be testifying to say something like this is because maybe they're hoping that actually if Google does come out unscathed here, or not, they're still able to make that partnership, they might want to be negotiating a little bit further than that 20 billion that they've had in the past. And by actually bringing other players into the marketplace, by saying actually there could be a deal with ChatGPT, or there could be a deal with Perplexity, there could be a deal with Anthropic, who owns Claude, for example, they're actually bringing in a potential for more investors to actually be competing over this deal for who is the default search engine on Safari. And I guess the first question about that would be, does anyone have the finances to actually be competing with a deal that Google's paying for of that 20 billion? But I think by opening up the question, Apple is certainly probably opening it up that there would be people ready to jump on investing in some of these AI search tools in order to start pushing for that market dominance in search. So my skepticism has many flavors and colors around this, and the exact why that Apple might testify this, I don't think we can be 100% sure of.
Yeah, I think you've really kind of summarized it well. Like, what they're saying versus what they actually intend is not entirely clear. Like, it could go either way. And one interesting point that Tim made about that we spoke to Tim earlier about this subject, he was saying that Apple are not going to want to say goodbye to that 20 billion, so therefore they're going to have to find somebody else. And if that's Bing shopping or Bing ads or whatever, they're going to have to. Bing are probably going to have to spend a lot more money to actually come in and replace like the 2 decades, as Tim said, 2 decades of testing and advertising behavior tracking that Bing just doesn't have. So they're going to have to spend like 30 billion in order to kind of give Apple an opportunity to say, our platform isn't as good, but at least we'll probably bend to how you want it to work, and we know how to, we have Copilot and things like that, so we can kind of offer some of the AI stuff that you want as well. But true, like, I really wouldn't put it past Apple to go and purchase a company who's already doing AI search well, like Perplexity. So Tim and I think, are on the same page with this one, saying like Perplexity is probably one of the superior experiences when it comes to web search. I would say the others are catching up or are doing well. We talked last week about Google Shopping is looking a bit better, but in terms of like a web search platform, Perplexity is by far and above the best. And they're very slowly adding in that advertising element as well. They've got Perplexity Pro, which improves the shopping system. they're adding advertising in as well. Like their pitch deck around how they're planning to add advertising more broadly has been secretly shared and has definitely been sent to Google, has definitely been sent to Apple. So they kind of are aware of what's coming down the line for them. So it wouldn't surprise me at all if Apple did say, do you know what? We want the experience and we want the money, but if we'll happily let go of the 20 billion, which is an easy decision to make when you're $1 trillion company, as I suppose. But we'll say goodbye to that 20 and offer a better experience. But then even then, there's still that advertising part is missing. So do you then pair it with Bing in some fashion? It's a tricky decision for them. And either way, there's definitely some some changes afoot to how people use Safari, how people use mobile apps, and therefore actually change their behavior when it comes to searching for stuff, which is why you see the growth of these other platforms like ChatGPT and Perplexity and Give Claude. It's a brief mention because it still hasn't really rolled out a strong web search experience just yet, but hopefully that's coming.
Yeah, I mean, my thoughts about this though are it's just a matter of time, and I don't think there's going to be an overnight switch to Safari pushing an AI, a generative engine ahead of Google, because like you say, there is not yet an integrated ads experience in those. But I also think that's only a matter of time. Just last week on the podcast, we were speaking, of course, about ChatGPT's new shopping experience, which mimics very closely what the Google Ads experience looks like for a user, and to me looks like the first step into the big swampy pond of advertising. So I don't think it's going to be wildly far off to assume that these generative AI platforms will figure out a way to integrate advertising products within them. And when they do, there's very little, I think, to actually stop this shift over that is most likely going to happen. And I know that there's still plenty of people out there, I see on LinkedIn almost every day, someone denying that ChatGPT and the other Gen AI engines are any good and that people are moving over and, that they still produce false information, so they can't be trusted, etc., etc. But those issues are increasingly being overcome. And I think we would be naive to think that all of these companies, ChatGPT, Gemini, etc., aren't actually pushing for ways to overcome those, to change the search experience. And we saw it in Google's response to what Apple said here, in that they're essentially disputing the claim of declining searches on Safari and saying that search queries are continuing to grow. And part of that is because they're also integrating AI capabilities into Google search, as we know, with AI overviews that I believe they're quoted on saying something around 1.5 billion monthly users hitting search features like AI overviews, which is, of course, huge. So even traditional Google search itself, as we think of it, actually has a large component now of AI built within it. And I think that we're just going to see that continued change. We can, people can hold on to the glory days of the 10 blue links in the traditional Google search, but Google is shifting that already. There's no reason for us to think that there won't be a longer term shift over to AI engines.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that Sundar Pichai, who's the CEO of Alphabet, said just last week in the same trial, offering testimony as well, was saying that they're actually hoping to bring Gemini to the platform, to iPhones, to iOS in the middle of this year. So there is something going on there, and Gemini will be maybe a replacement to search, and potentially like what Eddie Q said, the senior VP of services at Apple, said that searches through Safari are down, but potentially it's that actually people do like these other options, like your Geminis and ChatGPT and stuff, and it's just they're not lying by saying it's the behavior has changed. It's just that they're not really being forthcoming and saying, well, actually, there is going to be an improvement down the line. There's this better thing. So we're kind of hearing one thing, but they're not really saying the full story. So if it's true that Gemini is likely coming to the platform later in the year as a full replacement, and don't forget, in 2 weeks' time, it's 2 weeks' time in about 10 days, we've got Google I/O coming, which is the big developer conference that Google is putting on. They're going to announce a bunch of stuff there too. It could be that Gemini in some form, or Gemini merges with Google, or there could be some big announcement that happens there that kind of confirms what is being said between all these different people and the different quotations that may be taken in or out of context. Because Google actually saying search behavior is up. I think I just opened up their response to their stock price, like completely dropped by about 8% overnight when this testimony was happening, which is huge for Google. I mean, it's going to come back up again. It's one of those things, but they quickly came out and said that actually there is growth in search. We're seeing it, but they weren't really clear on saying like we're not seeing it via search, the traditional kind of platform. They're saying that searches are actually up. Like we're still seeing people use it more, and they're using it in different ways. So they're saying here about people using with new features such as we're going to talk about Gemini as well, but there's Google Lens, which is also definitely seeing an increase in usage. Apparently in their earnings report, and I cannot recall where I saw it, but there was something about Google Lenses like way up in terms of usage, and it's actually coming soon to AI mode as well. So for those who aren't familiar, AI mode is currently in beta kind of testing. It's only available for those who sign up. It's a kind of like ChatGPT within Google. So you go into Google, you do search, and you switch to AI mode if you want to have a conversation. It sounds like, according to people who know how to dive into the coding of these kind of things, that they're bringing a live element, so combining AI mode and Lens to make this visual kind of, you can chat to it whilst it looks at what you're doing. So there are a couple of examples that were published at last week's, I can't remember the name, it's like Google Cloud Developer Con or something, where they speak with the developers about the new coming technology, and they said that this is something you're going to be able to work with. And here are some examples. They posted a bunch of videos and said, here's how you can use Google Lens on an e-commerce store, and you got a nice pair of jeans, and you ask it what would be a good combination of clothes to use with this, and it would say recommend like here's you should pick a white blouse that would go really well and stuff like this. Stuff is increasingly going to be used, and it is going to get pushed out via Google's platform devices, of which there are millions of them. When I was doing that check of like market share between iPhone and Android, it was ridiculous. Android has like 70% of the market. Is wild. All this stuff is coming, and therefore it doesn't matter if the people are going to use traditional search via Safari. They're going to still, I would expect, navigate to Google in the same way that people, when they buy a new laptop or phone, they download Chrome straight away, or because they just prefer the experience that Google offers. So whatever happens, Google's still very much in the mix here, but search behavior is definitely changing.
It's absolutely changing. It's absolutely going to change. And I think it's going to be a really big shift. Like you say, people who want to use specific types of search do just download the apps. The same for ChatGPT. People will just download the app if they want it and would rather be using that. And I think most probably our Gen Z, our younger generation, are probably already downloading ChatGPT as an app on their phone, irrelevant of what the default search engine is. But I do think we would be naive to think that the default search engine on our phones isn't very big. Many people will just use whatever is the default. And if it was to shift over, I only think it would be a forcing point for pushing search habits to change more and more, where actually other people, the boomers, the millennials, everyone would then actually have to learn to use AI search if they're not already using it. And it feels like an arms race at the moment. It feels like it's all to play for in who is going to be dominant when it comes to those shifts. And like you say, this isn't just a question about what happens on Apple devices. The bigger question will also be what happens on those Android devices as well.
Yeah, totally. And when people are making these searches, whatever name of the platform it is, if it's called Gemini or Google or whatever, a lot of it's going to come through to the style of results that you see today, which is increasingly featuring AI overviews, which is somewhere that we have a lot of expertise in. So this is kind of interesting to see how this has changed, because we're also seeing what Google has said here in their earnings report, that they are now reaching 1.5 billion users with AI overviews. The AI mode queries are twice as long as traditional search queries, that they're seeing significant growth in multimodal queries. So that's with images and things like that. Circle to search has increased by 40% this quarter alone. Visual searches with Lens have increased by 5 billion since October. Like, this is a massive change, and AI overviews are a huge part of that. And just this week, I think there was a release from SEMrush, our lovely friends at SEMrush, talking about how they're monitoring like 10 million search queries to determine what are the changes from month to month, from quarter to quarter. And they've spotted that in their key takeaways, AI overviews are on the rise significantly. There's a 13% increase of all queries that have triggered an AI overview within March. And that's up from 6.4% in January. That's massive.
Yeah, it's
Like,
huge.
bananas kind of number. And 88% of the queries that are triggering AI overview are informational.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's wild to me, like just how fast it's growing. And still, well, there's a big consequence of that. But it's interesting to see like some of the sectors that have been impacted as well, Charlie. So you've got science, health, and society that are growing quite a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we have seen the same in finance as well when we've been looking at queries. And I definitely think that this shift is just an early sign of what will happen across industries. I think it would be very easy for business owners to be like, oh, well, it's sort of science, health, society, finance. It's not really where I'm positioning myself. This is just the first, not even the first, it's just the next iteration of what we're seeing with AI overviews. And I think business owners will continue to see this, and it is going to continue to push, as you're showing on your screen with SEMrush there, the rise of zero-click searches, where actually a lot of those informational searches just get answered. They get answered by AI, and that will soon be the expectation. And Google Lens, all of these using voice mode as well on ChatGPT and on Google search itself as well. That's just going to be part of the way our search habits change. I know that I love just having voice conversations with ChatGPT on my phone. Big fan of Google Lens. I use Google Lens for almost everything when I'm actually making purchase decisions. And the more these tools just become part of our usual search habits, the more search is going to change as well. That graph you're showing right now is quite staggering about the zero-click searches.
Yeah. Yeah, it's increasing quite a lot. There is quite a change, and it's kind of fluctuating, like how many of them are resulting in like a zero click. But it's there. Like, it's definitely going to increase because people are just, as all of us have used chatbots for a little while, will know you can spend like 10 minutes in there and not click through to a single citation or source. Like, you would, unless you really need to. But on that point, there was a great post by Glenn Allsop, who some may know as Viper Chill from back when I was learning SEO like a decade ago, talking about the NerdWallet earnings call, which happened earlier this week, and how they've had massive growth in insurance, 246% growth in insurance, 22% year-on-year growth for banking, 12% in loans. Huge revenue increases here for the NerdWallet company, which talks about finance, which gives you those ranking tables of the best mortgage lenders and so on. However, part of that has also come with a massive impact of AI overviews to them as well. So they put here that the organic search took a bit of a haircut over the past year with two drivers. One that was mentioned, which is AI overviews, and the other factor is rank. So whilst they are getting traffic or visibility on their brand via search, people are seeing NerdWallet coming up as either as a traditional link or with an AI overview. It's not then transferring into a website visit. And at the bottom here, in the same kind of quote, it says, in areas with simple answers, AI is going to meet that user need really well. But where it's more complex, what's important is to offer the best user experience. So again, Google is going to offer an instant answer with an AI overview or AI mode or whatever it is. And the same for Perplexity and Claude. They're going to try and answer your query there and then. But for anything more complex, where you need to dig into things like mortgage rates, you need a calculator to figure that out. That's probably not going to be surfaced on an AI overview. You are going to have to navigate to NerdWallet and enter your information, and then be taken on a bit of a journey through their ecosystem of, here's some extra content that may be useful to you. Here's the next step or the next stage in your, what you should be doing next. Oh, here's a direct link to the best mortgage lender, and so on. which is massive. Like, and it's great. It's interesting to see that they've actually increased revenue off the back of losing traffic at the same time.
Well, the big thing for me with this is businesses probably are going to lose traffic from some of those top level informational terms, the top of the funnel stuff. And we've spoken about it before on the podcast. But when people are actually making purchasing decisions, which is what most website owners, marketing directors, marketing managers are interested in, is how they're going to get leads, or if they're e-commerce, how they're going to get sales and how they're going to retain their customers to continue making revenue from them. Because ultimately, we're for-profit businesses, and that's what we're focused on, is how do our results actually drive revenue for the businesses that we work in. And a lot of the time that isn't always going to be from those top of the funnel searches. I think we're used to seeing conversion rates in many industries on websites around 2-3%, for example, is quite normal, quite average for a lot of industries. And actually, if you've got more qualified traffic but you've got less of it, and you're able to start seeing higher conversion rates, that's great news. And if that means AI is scooping up some of that early top of the funnel traffic that you used to have, that may have downsides in terms of some of that traffic. You are getting that stickiness, that brand recognition. But actually, if people are still making purchasing decisions, like you say, Dale, things like mortgages, financial decisions, health decisions, when we're buying from companies, everything really, even clothing, even skincare, all of those types of products, we want to trust that the company we're buying from is a good one. We want to trust the ingredients in our skincare products. We want to trust the people who are giving us mortgage rates. We want to trust that they're looking out for our best interests and that actually they're giving us a good rate in the market, that no one's trying to fleece us when we buy things. That's what everyone's always thinking about when we're researching online. And so there is still, I think, a huge opportunity for businesses. And we know that SEO is still massive. Many of our clients, it's their biggest revenue driver is their organic search still now, and their Google ads as well, of course. And actually, we need to think more as business owners about how we're building trust with the visitors we do get through to our website, because as soon as they're through on our website, if we have the rise of continued AI overview, zero-click searches, AI searches where stuff isn't coming through, where that initial traffic isn't, we can assume that we are actually getting people who are slightly further down the funnel to our websites. And the opportunity, we need to immediately be able to build that trust and show that our businesses, our brands are reliable, great places to purchase from once they do get there. And it could, the positive way of looking at this, because there's always a bright side, the silver lining is that hopefully those users will be a little bit more educated because they are already further down the funnel. They've done loads of research wherever that was, whatever AI platform or answer that might have been through. And for us as business owners, as marketers, we want to make sure actually they have the right information. They come to trust us. If we do think there's false information, so I know that that's a big concern in the finance sector with AI, healthcare as well, legal as well, as it should be. We have the opportunity to be businesses that people trust and give really accurate information, because people will go to you if you're the source of truth for them. And I think it's the perfect opportunity to think more broadly about how we brand, how we position, how we sell well the products and the services that we do sell.
I think you answered a question we've got in the live. We're recording this live on youtube.com/exposure ninja. From Jay was asking about how can business owners gain traffic for queries from these Google search competitors. That comes back to what you're saying. Like, you need to understand how your brand is positioned in the market across all of these different tools. So you have to do the research now, and should have probably started several months ago, if not a year or two ago, to understand, like, okay, this is a real threat and is changing the marketing industry and the search marketing industry considerably. And there are different tools you can kind of use to analyze where you stand in the market today. And we were fortunate to have a couple of partners who are really good at this. So we've got Profound, who offer a visibility score, so you can kind of track how well that your business is appearing across search queries. So in this case, we set it up just to have a look at Vanguard as an example, and it searches across 4,000 prompts across ChatGPT and Perplexity, and you can change these to see which ones if you want specifically to look at only ChatGPT, you can see how well that your business is appearing, and you can look over a period of time to see, okay, all the work that I'm doing to optimize for AI, you're doing your AI search optimization. How well is that impacting how frequently I appear? And in there, you can also do the sentiment tracking as well. So you can see what people are saying about you. Is it positive, negative? And if you're in the marketing team, you're working with service or product teams as well, you can say, here's what people are saying well, here's what AI is saying about us that isn't impacting us in a positive way. How can we turn that around? Can we work on this to improve our whatever this is about limited trading platform features? Okay, which features do we need to add in to stay competitive in this area? And it will tell you about, okay, here are the things that are positive, here are the things that are negative, and so on. And I really love this. And I love SEMrush's version as well. This also presents opportunities for you to optimize as well. So we'll say that, okay, in this demo for Warby Parker, you could work better on your pricing versus your competitors. You need to do more about your in-store services. Here's how you're going to be able to impact your market share, the distribution of you versus all your competitors. And down the bottom, we'll suggest, in the same way that Profound has this functionality too, it says, okay, great. Something you can do in the very short term, focus on your home try-on program, promote that, because that's going to not only be a great feature for people to see, they'll see the benefits from it, but also increases the positivity for your brand and for the products that you offer. So there are tools out there that are going to help you to understand how the market is transforming, how your brand is visible within all these different platforms, because all these tools also track for AI overviews too, within ChatGPT Perplexity. They're going to give you a fairly broad understanding of, okay, this is a problem area for me. I need to work on my sentiment. I need to increase my brand's visibility in this subject area. People love this particular thing. They love, I don't know, low rates for investing. We should probably talk more about the fact that ours are actually the lowest across all of our competitors. We probably don't talk about that enough, versus the number of options you have for ETFs or stock purchases and so on. So there are lots of ways that you're going to be able to cover like understand the market and your share, your percent, your brand visibility, your sentiment score. Yeah. There's so many different names that are floating around at the moment as well.
I absolutely love both of the tools that you've just showed, and I think they're revolutionary, to be honest. We've been waiting for tools like this for a long time for AI search, and Profound, which is on the screen now for anyone looking, which is tryprofound.com, is very slick, extremely detailed, and really well tailored, I think, to enterprise and large businesses who know that AI search is driving large amounts of traffic. They're continuing to see it increase. They're probably seeing conversions as well, and actually need a really close eye on their competitors and what they're doing, because this platform is disrupting already search for them. And I think SEMrush is a great tool for businesses who are a bit smaller, where it may not be that AI search is yet as aggressive or as big a component, but they're starting to see it. And actually, if you're a business owner or marketing manager who wants to be really ahead of the curve and get a bit of an idea of, right, like what is actually happening and how am I doing with AI search, how am I doing against my competitors, what are the sort of quick win top level improvements I want to make, the SEMrush platform is great for doing that, getting that head start as well, especially if anyone hasn't actually yet started on AI search. But both tools are phenomenal. I highly recommend having a look at both of them if you're not familiar with them. And if you're actually thinking like, I have no idea. Oh my goodness. I don't know if I have any traffic coming from these AI search platforms. I did a wonderfully fun webinar with Moz a few weeks ago on the Practical Marketer webinar series, which shows you exactly how you can set up a workflow in your Google Analytics 4, or if you use Looker Studio reports, you can also do it through there. Many agencies, us included, we have very custom Looker Studio reports for our clients. They can then show you exactly how much traffic you're getting through from those AI platforms. You can put it in a nice pie chart if you've got a Looker Studio report set up and you're confident with integrating that. If you're not, you could always ask an agency to help you. And then if you want to just use it in Google Analytics 4 to get a bit of an idea, you can also set that up a custom way of seeing that inside your usual dashboard in GA4, your usual reporting to see actually which of these AI platforms are driving us traffic, if any, how much traffic is it, how many conversions is it, and get a bit of an overview of that. So I'd highly recommend watching that webinar if you're at that stage of mild panic. Hope don't panic, but mild panic that actually maybe you need to get a bit of a handle on how much traffic is coming through those as well. And I can see, Dale, you've just pulled up a beautiful graph which shows one of our Looker Studio reports. This one is for a fantastic client of ours, DSLD Mortgage, who sell mortgages in the US, in specific parts of the southern US. And you can see this is quite a common type of graph that you'd be seeing, where it's actually you're seeing AI traffic really increasing over time. And that graph particularly that you're zooming in on now shows from about the period where ChatGPT really started to become a big thing, where it started to become on everyone's radar. And that was quite small at the beginning, but the trajectory of this is already on the up. And you can see it now. This is, I think those last few months, are they February and March that it's showing on that graph?
January and February, that was before it ramped up in March and April.
So that January is already like booming. And this, you can see there's only, on this graph, there's only one conversion, but I know this client has had a couple of conversions now coming through AI search. So still early, but it's definitely gaining momentum. And I think many businesses, if they actually have a little dig into their data, will probably start to see something similar to this. And if they're not, my next question would be, are their competitors stealing all of that traffic from AI search? And actually, a couple of manual searches in ChatGPT, etc., about your sector, about your industry, will probably give you a good idea of if you're showing up or not. And then you're at the starting blocks. You need to start building for it.
Do you know what? I was just I'm trying to very quickly go through all my saved posts on LinkedIn, because I just saved something just yesterday or the day before, which is somebody talking about there's a founder, can't recall their name, but they run a platform called Nomad List, I think it is, and basically they're talking about how much traffic they have earned over the years from over the last like 6 months from AI search, from ChatGPT and so on. Theirs has ramped up from being like only 5% of their traffic to Nomad List to now 25% of their traffic. Wild. It's like ramped massively, and I really wish I could find the example, the numbers, because it was just astonishing. It was like a screenshot of their analytics. I was just like, wow, can't believe that happening.
Is the perfect example to underscore just why a business needs to separate this out, either in Google Analytics 4 or Looker Studio reports if they're using those, to actually see what's happening under the hood and how much that's increasing.
Yeah, I'm desperately trying to find it, but perhaps I'll share it in the podcast notes that will be up in a couple of days' time. Never mind. Okay, well, that's for another time, perhaps. But yeah, just to bring us back to the topic of the title for this week, could Google lose 2 billion daily searches from Apple? Maybe not 2 billion, but a hefty amount. Because either it's going to be changed to be Gemini as a replacement, or Apple is going to find somebody else, maybe Bing, who can offer a good advertising platform that's still going to be able to afford to pay the 20 billion or more, because they don't have that 20 years of 70% of market share of mobile traffic to kind of pull from as well. Maybe not 2 billion, but it's going to happen. It's either going to be a replacement, or it's going to be just change in how people search. They're going to use Apple Intelligence to just ask ChatGPT or ask Siri or ask Perplexity if they come on board. But it's certainly, the end result is going to be a change to traffic to websites. You need a new strategy. You need a broader AI aware, AI prepared, AI search optimization approach, a strategy that kind of helps you communicate your brand and the positives about it across all these different platforms.
Absolutely. My roundup answer is not yet, but soon-ish.
Yeah, absolutely. I had a thought, but I've lost it. Never mind. Yeah, that was it. It's back to me. Somebody said the other day that the golden age of SEO is over, and I kind of, in a slight way, don't entirely agree, but the sentiment is there. It's correct. This is more like when the Panda update and Penguin update and the Medic update happened, Seismic changed the way that search marketing works, but search continues to increase. It's still important. It's still bringing thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of visits to some websites. You just need to adapt now, because the trajectory of people using the internet is only going to increase. You just got to adapt and figure it out with our help if you'd like it. So if you want to learn more about search engine optimization, or about generative engine optimization, about AI search optimization, whatever name you're going to call it, you can head to exposureninja.com/blog or /podcast. You can head to youtube.com/exposure ninja. We have a stack of videos for you. There's also on our YouTube channel an entire series of strategy podcasts just like this between myself, Charlie, and our wonderful team, where we talk about how to create powerful, high impact GEO strategies, SEO strategies, content strategies, digital PR strategies. We have you covered. So head over to exposureninja.com/podcast and you'll find all of them there. Thanks so much, Charlie. It's been great chatting with you on this one. And
my pleasure, as always.
Excellent. We'll see you all this time next week. Take care and bye.
Bye.